Millions of years before humans first walked the Earth, our planet was a stage for the most spectacular arms race in the history of biological evolution. While the giant long-necked sauropods were busy turning plants into sheer mountain-sized mass, and the armored herbivores were evolving into walking tanks, a third group was perfecting the art of the hunt. These were the theropods. From the bird-like gliders to the multi-ton titans that made the ground tremble with every step, theropods weren't just meat eaters. They were nature's ultimate experiment in apex predation. They mastered the bipedal blueprint, balancing their massive bodies on two powerful legs, freeing up their arms for grasping, and turning their skulls into specialized weapons of war. But here's the thing: nature never settled on just one way to build a killer. In this deep dive, we are deconstructing the hierarchy of the beast-footed kings. We aren't just looking at random dinosaurs. We are exploring the 6 most powerful dynasties of the theropod world. We're moving from the tactical, high IQ assassins to the heavy-duty, bone-shattering emperors. We are going to analyze how they lived, the unique biological advantages that allowed them to dominate their respective eras, and the terrifyingly diverse ways to claim their place at the top of the food chain. Some used surgical precision with blade-like teeth, others used sheer crushing force, and some even took the fight into the water. Whether it's the lightning-fast sprinters of the South or the feathered ninjas with sickle-shaped claws, every group on this list brought something revolutionary to the table. We are ranking them from the smaller specialized geniuses to the absolute heavyweight champions of the Mesozoic. So, buckle up. We're going back to a time when the air smelled of ozone and the world belonged to the most successful predators to ever walk the land. This is the ultimate guide to the theropod dynasty. We begin our journey not with the largest, but with arguably the most sophisticated predators of the Mesozoic, the Dromaeosaurids. In popular culture, you know them as raptors, but the reality of these animals is far more fascinating and terrifying than any movie could portray. To understand how Dromaeosaurids lived, you have to look at them as the high-performance sports cars of the dinosaur world. They weren't built for a battle of attrition, they were built for agility, balance, and tactical strikes. These were feathered theropods, deeply connected to the lineage of modern birds, and they possessed a high level of neurological complexity. Their large brains allowed for advanced coordination and sensory processing, making them the thinkers of their ecosystem. Their primary advantage was a biological masterpiece, the sickle claw. Located on the second toe of each foot, this hyper-extended claw was held off the ground to keep it razor sharp. For a long time, we thought they used it to disembowel prey, but modern biomechanical analysis suggests something even more brutal: the raptor prey restraint model. Like modern hawks and eagles, Dromaeosaurids likely used their claws to pin down struggling prey, using their body weight to anchor the victim while they began feeding. It wasn't a quick kill, it was a tactical lockdown. When it comes to the most popular family within this group, the Dromaeosauria takes the spotlight. This subfamily includes the heavy hitters that moved away from small game hunting and started tackling animals much larger than themselves. Within this group, the most captivating species, and arguably the king of all raptors, is Utahraptor austromacey. Imagine a raptor, but instead of the turkey-sized creature from history books, you have a 1,500-pound behemoth. Found in the early Cretaceous of North America, Utahraptor was built like a tank compared to its leaner cousins. It had incredibly thick leg bones and a massive, robust skull. Utahraptor was a genuine apex predator capable of bringing down iguanodonts. It proved that the raptor blueprint could be scaled up to nearly a ton of muscle and feathers, without losing its lethal tactical edge. They were the ninjas that grew to the size of grizzly bears, proving that intelligence and specialized weaponry were just as effective as raw towering height. Meanwhile, Velociraptor, perhaps the most famous members of this entire lineage, but also the most misunderstood. In reality, these animals were much smaller than their cinematic counterparts, roughly the size of a large turkey, and covered in a dense coat of feathers. Found in the arid landscapes of late Cretaceous Mongolia, Velociraptor was a desert specialist. They were built for high-speed chases across sandy dunes, possessing a long, stiff tail that acted as a dynamic stabilizer, essentially a rudder, that allowed them to make sharp, banking turns without losing their balance. The most famous piece of evidence we have for their lifestyle is the legendary fighting dinosaurs fossil, which captures a velociraptor locked in a death struggle with a protoceratops. The fossil shows the raptor's sickle claw embedded in the herbivore's neck, proving that these animals were incredibly brave, willing to take on prey that was much bulkier and better armored than themselves. They were the ultimate proof that in the theropod world, spirit and specialized weaponry could bridge the gap where size was lacking. As we move up the scale of size and power, we encounter one of the most enigmatic and specialized lineages to ever haunt the southern hemisphere, the Megaraptorans. For decades, these predators were a ghost in the fossil record, leaving behind tantalizing clues that confused paleontologists for years. At first, their massive curved claws led scientists to believe they were giant cousins of the Velociraptor. But as more complete fossils emerged, we realized nature had designed something entirely different and arguably more versatile. Megaraptorans were the rebel architects of the theropod world. While other giant dynasties like the Ceratosaurs and Tyrannosaurs were evolving to have tiny, almost useless arms in favor of massive skulls, Megaraptorans doubled down on their front limbs. They possessed long, powerful, and highly flexible arms equipped with 3 devastating claws. The most prominent was the thumb claw, a thick, serrated scythe that could reach over a foot in length. Their hunting strategy was a radical departure from the bite-only method. Megaraptorans were hand-first killers. They used their incredible reach to snag prey with their claws, acting like grappling hooks to lock onto a victim's flank. Once the prey was secured, they would use their slender, elongated snouts to deliver precise bites, while their powerful arms shredded through muscle and connective tissue. They were the ultimate combination of reach and lethality. Within this group, the family Megaraptoridae stands as the definitive power player of the late Cretaceous. Among them, one species perfectly captures the grace and speed of this lineage, Australovenator, affectionately nicknamed Banjo. Found in the ancient floodplains of Australia, Australovenator was the cheetah of its time. Heaviest predator, weighing in at around 500 to 1,000 kilograms, but it was built for pure unadulterated speed. Its lightweight frame and bird-like legs made it a nightmare for the agile herbivores of the Winton Formation. Banjo is a scientific treasure because its fossils are so well preserved that they proved once and for all that these legendary claws belonged on the hands, not the feet. However, if Australovenator was the precision instrument, then the newly discovered Mipe macrothorax was the heavy artillery. Delineated in 2022 from the rocks of Argentina, Mipe represents the absolute peak of Megaraptoran evolution. Named after a malevolent shadow spirit from Aeonic Hank mythology, this beast reached lengths of nearly 10 meters and weighed over 3 tons. Mipe proved that the Megaraptoran blueprint could scale up to challenge even the biggest predators on Earth. It dominated the landscape by being faster than the heavyweights and more powerful than the sprinters, using its massive torso and shadow claws to rule the final days of the dinosaur era in South America. They were the masters of the clutch and kill, a dynasty that redefined what it meant to have a lethal reach. Next, we venture into the world of the eccentrics, the Ceratosaurs. This group is a fascinating example of evolutionary persistence. While other lineages were constantly reinventing themselves, the Ceratosaurs stayed true to a primitive, specialized blueprint that allowed them to survive and thrive for over 100 million years. They were the decorated warriors of the dinosaur world. defined by their strange horns, bony ridges, and some of the most bizarre body proportions ever seen in a predator. To understand how ceratosaurs lived, you have to look at them as the heavy impact specialists. Unlike the tactical raptors or the grasping Megaraptorans, ceratosaurs relied on a combination of high-speed acceleration and head-first combat. They possessed deep, muscular necks and skulls that were reinforced to withstand massive amounts of physical stress. Their biological advantage wasn't in their hands. In fact, in later species, the arms became so reduced they were practically invisible. Instead, their power was concentrated in their hindquarters. They had massive anchor points for their tail muscles, which functioned like high-torque engines, allowing them to hit top speeds in a matter of seconds. Their hunting strategy was brutal and direct, the charge and strike. They were the bulls of the Mesozoic, using their reinforced skulls to ram into prey at high velocities, staggering their victims before delivering a series of rapid slashing bites. They didn't need to grab you, they just needed to hit you hard enough to break your spirit. Within this lineage, the family Allosauridae stands out as the ultimate success story of the Southern Hemisphere. They became the apex predators of South America, Africa, and India, filling the niche of the heavy sprinter. And no animal embodies this better than the iconic Carnotaurus, the meat-eating bull. Carnotaurus is a masterpiece of specialized evolution. It is famous for the two thick blade-like horns above its eyes and its incredibly short, deep snout. But its real secret was in its skin and its speed. Thanks to remarkably preserved fossils, we know Carnotaurus was covered in a mosaic of large, non-overlapping scales and bony lumps, giving it a rugged, armored appearance. Biomechanical studies suggest that Carnotaurus was perhaps the fastest large theropod to ever live, a 2-ton predator that could outrun almost anything in its path. Its arms were mere vestiges, but its legs were pure power, making it the definitive interceptor of the Cretaceous. However, the legacy of this group began much earlier with the rhino of the Jurassic, Ceratosaurus. Living in North America alongside giants like Allosaurus, Ceratosaurus carved out its own niche by being different. It sported a prominent horn on its snout and a row of small bony plates called osteoderms running down its back, a trait rarely seen in meat-eating dinosaurs. Ceratosaurus was a pioneer, showing that the Ceratosaurian plan of using ornamental headgear and a robust, muscular build was a winning strategy long before the bulls took over the South. They were a dynasty that proved you didn't need long arms to rule a continent. You just needed a hard head and the speed to back it up. As we scale up even further, we meet the group that truly broke all the rules of dinosaur biology, the Megalosauroids. While other theropods were perfecting the art of land-based combat, this lineage decided to do something unprecedented. They looked toward the water. The Megalosauroids were the ultimate versatile specialists, a dynasty that managed to produce both the heaviest land predators of the Jurassic and the most specialized aquatic giants of the Cretaceous. To understand the Megalosauroids, you have to appreciate their experimental nature. They weren't just big. They were built with high-density bones and elongated crocodile-like snouts that were packed with sensitive nerve endings. Their biological advantage was their sensory sophistication. Many species possessed pressure-sensitive integumentary organs on their snouts, allowing them to detect the vibrations of swimming prey even in murky, dark waters. They were the snipers of the shallows, claiming an ecosystem that no other dinosaur group dared to touch. Their hunting strategy was a master class in adaptation. On land, they were powerful grapplers who used massive arm claws to secure their victims. But in the water, they became patient ambushers. They could wait motionless for hours, submerged like prehistoric crocodiles, before launching a lightning-fast strike with their interlocking conical teeth. Teeth designed not to slice, but to grip and never let go. Within this fascinating group, the family Spinosauridae is the undisputed star. They represent the peak of this semi-aquatic lifestyle, and no species is more captivating or more debated than the legendary Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus was a titan that defied gravity, reaching lengths of up to 14 meters, making it even longer than the mighty T-Rex. With its massive dorsal sail and a tail shaped like a giant paddle, it was a river monster. Recent studies of its bone density show that it was ballasted, meaning it had heavy bones that allowed it to submerge and hunt the car-sized fish and giant freshwater sharks of ancient Africa. It was a king that ruled two worlds, a predator that proved the theropod blueprint was capable of conquering the water column. But the Megalosauroid legacy isn't just about water. Long before Spinosaurus ruled the rivers, the Jurassic plains were haunted by the brute of the dynasty, Torvosaurus. If Allosaurus was the agile lion of the Jurassic, Torvosaurus was the grizzly bear. Weighing in at over 4 tons, this was a massive, heavily built predator, with enormous thumb claws and a skull designed for raw-crushing power. Torvosaurus was the land-based anchor of this group, proving that even without the aquatic adaptations, the Megalosauroids were capable of producing some of the most formidable heavyweight killers to ever walk the earth. They were the dynasty of versatility, the monsters that proved the beast-footed kings could rule the land and the rivers with equal ferocity. Now, we step into the territory of the global superpowers, the Allosaurids. If the dinosaur world had a golden age of predation, this group was its architect. For tens of millions of years, the Allosaurid lineage, specifically the broader clade of Allosauroidea, held a relentless grip on nearly every continent on Earth. They were the surgical butchers, a dynasty that didn't just survive. They conquered by perfecting a very specific, terrifyingly effective way, bringing down the largest land animals to ever exist. To understand how Allosaurids lived, you have to look at their skull as a precision instrument rather than a blunt club. Their biological advantage lay in a unique mechanical design often called the hatchet strike. While their bite force wasn't as high as later giants, their skulls were engineered to withstand incredible vertical impact. They could open their jaws exceptionally wide and drive their upper teeth down into a victim with the speed and force of a battle axe. Their teeth weren't meant to crush bone. They were shark teeth, thin, serrated, and razor-sharp blades designed to slice through thick hide and muscle like a hot knife through butter. Their hunting strategy was a calculated game of shock and blood loss. Against the mountain-sized sauropods, an Allosaurid didn't try to deliver a single killing blow. Instead, they delivered deep slashing wounds, taking out massive chunks of flesh, and then backing away to let the inevitable blood loss and shock do the work. They were the persistent predators, often working in loose, terrifying mobs to harass and eventually exhaust giants that weighed 10 times more than they did. Within this global empire, the family Carcharodontosauridae represents the absolute peak of the Slayer evolution. These were the true shark-toothed lizards of the South. And the most captivating species in their ranks is the legendary Giganotosaurus carolini. Emerging from the lush Cretaceous plains of Argentina, Giganotosaurus was a nightmare of epic proportions. It was longer and taller than many other apex predators, a 9-ton specialized machine built for one purpose: toppling titans. Its skull alone was the size of a grown human, filled with rows of those iconic serrated blades. Giganotosaurus proved that the Allosaurid blueprint could be scaled to a massive size without losing the agility needed to dance around the whipping tails of its sauropod prey. However, the foundation of this empire was laid by the lion of the Jurassic, Allosaurus. Found in the thousands across the American West, Allosaurus is one of the most successful predators in history. It was a reckless brawler and the king before T-Rex. Fossil evidence shows Allosaurus specimens covered in healed battle scars, including wounds from the spiked tails of Stegosaurus. It was a versatile high-energy killer that occupied every niche, from a solo hunter of smaller game to a pack-oriented threat to long-necked giants. The Allosaurids proved that if you have the right tools to bleed your enemy, no prey is too big to be brought down. They were the dynasty that turned the world into a butcher shop. And the last dynasty, we reach the zenith of theropod evolution, the group that turned biological engineering into a statement of absolute power, the Tyrannosaurids. If the previous dynasties were specialists in slicing, grasping, or sprinting, the Tyrannosaurids were designed for something much more definitive: total domination. Appearing in the final chapters of the Cretaceous, they represented the most sophisticated version of a terrestrial predator to ever walk the Earth, trading the hit-and-run tactics of their ancestors for a search-and-destroy philosophy. To understand how Tyrannosaurids lived, you have to realize they were the first predators to fully integrate brute strength with high-level intelligence. Their biological advantage was a sensory suite that would make a modern predator jealous. They possessed some of the largest olfactory bulbs in the dinosaur kingdom, giving them a sense of smell that could track prey from miles away. But even more impressive was their vision. Unlike most other theropods, advanced Tyrannosaurids had binocular vision. Their eyes faced forward, giving them depth perception superior to that of a modern hawk. They weren't just lunging into the dark, they were calculating every strike with mathematical precision. Their hunting strategy was a terrifying departure from the slashing method. Instead of causing blood loss, they utilized the bone-crushing bite. Their teeth weren't thin knives, they were thick, serrated, lethal bananas anchored by massive roots. This allowed them to bite through solid bone, reaching the nutrient-rich marrow that other predators had to leave behind. A Tyrannosaurid didn't just wound you, it dismantled you. One bite to the neck or spine was enough to end a struggle instantly, as their jaw muscles exerted thousands of pounds of pressure, literally exploding the skeletal structure of their prey. Within this elite dynasty, the subfamily Tyrannosaurini holds the crown. And while many were formidable, the Tarbosaurus bataar stands as a testament to their global reach. Often called the T-Rex of the East, this Mongolian titan ruled the Gobi Desert with an iron jaw. While slightly more slender than its North American cousin, Tarbosaurus was a specialized hunter of long-necked titans and duck-billed dinosaurs. Its skull was unique, narrower, and designed to handle massive stress in a different way, proving that even within the tyrant family, evolution was still fine-tuning the perfect killer for different environments. But of course, every discussion of power leads to the undisputed king of kings, Tyrannosaurus rex. It was the ultimate heavyweight champion, a 9-ton marvel of muscle and bone. It possessed the strongest bite force of any terrestrial animal in history, estimated at nearly 12,000 pounds of pressure. But it wasn't just a mindless brute. T-Rex had a brain-to-body ratio that suggested a high level of tactical awareness. It was a predator that could smell you before it saw you, see you before you knew it was there. And once it caught you, there was no biological defense that could withstand its power. It was the final word in the story of the theropods, the perfect end product of 150 million years of predatory evolution. They were the dynasty that didn't just participate in the arms race, they won it. As we stand at the peak of this prehistoric hierarchy, we see that the story of the theropods wasn't a linear climb to the top. Instead, it was a massive branching tree of diverse solutions to a single problem: survival. Today, their reign is over, but their legacy remains etched in stone and carried on in the wings of every bird that flies above us. They remind us that nature is never static. It is a constant, churning cycle of innovation. Today's apex predator is tomorrow's fossil, and where the only constant is change itself. The era of the beast-footed kings might have ended 66 million years ago, but in the echoes of their thunderous footsteps, we find the most epic chapter in the history of life on Earth. They were the giants, the geniuses, and the nightmares of a world that once was, a world that will forever belong to the theropod dynasty. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the 6 strongest groups in Theropod, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to share the video too. We've got more prehistoric breakdowns coming your way soon. Until next time, stay curious.